Hello and welcome back to Wotton Tor. A couple of years ago I returned to model railways after a long break, and as a starting point I put together a test layout. The layout itself is basically an 8x4 train set layout consisting of a couple of loops with some sidings. My objective when I started it was to see if I was capable of ballasting, creating trees, applying static grass, building cliffs, etc. It also gave me an opportunity to get into DCC and to experiment with such things as building a DCC-X controller using an Arduino board, as well as learning to use JMRI on a Raspberry Pi controlled using engine driver running on an old Motorola Android phone. Since starting, I've managed to collect quite a few locos, new and second-hand, and rolling stock, and the time is fast approaching where Wotton Tor will be ready for an upgrade. So where does one start? For me, the first place to start is to have a look at what others are doing. Mind you, there are so many great YouTube channels out there, Lakeside, Dean Park, Chadwick Railway, New Junction, Everard Junction, and on, that I could easily spend all my time watching others rather than getting on and doing. But having recently watched Paul's video outlining his plans for Sandling Junction, and seeing the excellent plans put together by Julian of Station Road for Paul, I felt the time has come to actually start thinking about Wotton Tor Rebuild. So where does one actually start doing the work for a new layout? For me, the first thing to do is to start jotting things down. What do I want from my new layout? Where am I going to put it? And how much space do I have? Do I want to model a particular area? Should it be DC or DCC? It's early days, but I already know I'd like to have a tail chaser layout, and I'm inclined towards the 60s and 70s for the era. But maybe it's worth considering a modern day line, main line, with a heritage line. I also know that the new layout will be in my garage. So let me just show you where I hope to develop Wotton Tor Rebuild. So here's the current Wotton Tor. As I said, a train set layout with a couple of sidings, but it has given me a good opportunity of trying out ballasting, making trees, making cliffs, and all the sort of applying the static grass and just trying things out. It's also given me the opportunity to get into DCC, and so I've had the fun of controlling my layout mainly from a Raspberry Pi, using JMRI and engine driver on an old Motorola Android phone. But as you can see, and as I've already said, this is very much a train set layout. It's just a couple of loops and that's it. And yes, it is fun to run things around, but to be honest, it's getting a bit boring. And since getting back into model railways, it's fair to say I've started collecting some extra stock, as you'll see from those boxes there. So the time has come really to start thinking about upgrading or rebuilding Wotton Tor. So what am I going to do and what are the plans? Well, first of all, the first thing to do was decide where was I going to have my new layout. At the moment, Wotton Tor is actually standing in the garage. A double garage, but the car never comes in here. And I thought, well, I could always use the garage for my new layout, and that's my plan. So having decided that, the first thing to do was tidy the garage. I have to admit it may look a bit of a mess at the moment, but it's a lot better than it was. I've already done some putting up of new lights up there. I've done some painting of the wall. Instead of being grey breeze block, it's now white breeze block. Another thing I had was an electrician to come and put some extra plugs in, as you'll see running down there on the wall, and a new socket up for the lights. So the space I've got is basically 4 meters long from the back wall there to where the white wall finishes, and I can use up to about 3 meters across, because obviously I still need to be able to use part of the garage for storing things in. I'm not showing it at the moment, but behind me there's a whole wall full of boxes, and there's garden equipment and all that sort of thing that I need to have somewhere. So I'm going to start with that and start trying to work out a design As I said, it's very early days at the moment. I'm not sure exactly how it'll go. I do know I want to have a tail chaser layout. I'm more into watching my trains going around. I'm not too worried about shunting and that side of things. So the first thing to do will be have some loops and things. So again, maybe it'll end up being just a glorified train set layout, but I hope not. The other thing I want to do is try and have some tunnels and some height as well. And also I'll need a good fiddle yard. And again, for that, I'm thinking of having two layers. I'm thinking of having a helix or a couple of helixes so the fiddle yard can be underneath the main board. I'm actually going to be using Railway Modeler on a Mac, and I've already done some doodling. I've started by creating a rough layout of the baseboards I'd like. I'd like to be able to, as I said, have a tail chaser. I want to have helixes. I want to have some tunnels. I want to have some extra heights and maybe some bridges, a viaduct. And so I'm going to, or have done, just put down some ideas. And this first video is just showing those ideas. Now, I know there's a lot more work needed and they're just some ideas. The thing is, I do have a couple of models from John Simpson, a very nice church and a very nice gasworks, which I'd like to include. And therefore they are on the plans as where I put them. So the idea is that I'll probably have my tail chaser. I'll have one side of the layout very much into the country. Probably, as you'll see the plans, they'll be at the top part of the plans across the river. And the bottom part will be where I'll have a town, or that's the idea, with the gasworks and things. Also, at the one end, I'm going to have underneath the town, there'll be the helix and lots of junctions and things, or points. So again, they'll have to be accessible from one side, but I think I can do that. As I said, this is just going to be throwing it all together now. Just try it out, start looking at it, start doing measurements. What sort of things do I want? Can I make them? And I'll take it from there. The plan, as I said, is to fill up the space that you can see here with a new layout. This is what Wotton Tor is at the moment. My hope is that it'll expand into that area there and be something that'll keep me busy and entertained for quite some while. There you go, that's the plan, to have a new layout, Wotton Tor Rebuild in the garage. I know it's very early days at the moment. I know those plans need an awful lot more work. I know there's lots to do before I even start building anything, but I'm looking forward to it. And I would also say, if you've got any comments, if you've got any suggestions, if you're able to point me at other places where I can get information, all that would be very gratefully received. And I look forward to just working on this, maybe having a few videos as I go along, and who knows, and maybe in a few years' time I'll actually have a layout working and running. But in the meantime, I just want to say a big thank you to all those YouTubers out there who are doing such great videos of their model railways that gives us all so much inspiration. And so I hope you all have a good night. Bye.